Aromie here. Welcome back to our life. Beginning and always. I keep wanting to say forever and always. Beginnings and always. We're here. We're going to jump straight into the first DLC of Derek, Responsible. The pool of Derek's condo complex was a perfect setting for a late morning outing. It was early enough that the day hadn't yet reached its hottest. Can't read for some reason. The air still held the crispiness of morning. Despite its pleasantness, only you and Derek were there. Of course, given the location of the ocean, maybe everyone else who felt like waterside fun was at the beach. You usually were. The warm roughness of tiles felt odd on your bare feet as you walked further into the pool area. There was no sand to squish between your toes or sharp shells to avoid. You surveyed the area while Derek finished putting his stuff away on the chair. The chlorine was sharp in your senses and the entire space was so orderly. Lounge chairs sat in neat rows, umbrellas spaced out uniformly. The depth of the pool was marked out in clear text along the sides. Every single element was intentionally and expertly crafted to be convenient for its human visitors. Why did I point that out? Human visitors. Are there animals allowed in this hotel? It was extremely different from the wild mistress of the sea. Mistress. You like the placid pools more. You like the sandy beach with rolling waves way more. You like both the pool and the beach about the same. I like both the same. Both had their good points. You were up for today's adventure to be something different from your typical day-to-day options. This had been Derek's plan. He let you know about it ahead of time so you could be dressed for the occasion. You wore a one-piece swimsuit, you wore a two-piece swimsuit, you wore swim trunks, you wore a wetsuit. A whole-ass wetsuit? A wetsuit is like scuba gear, right? Like the outfit? Not the whole flippers and snorkeling and everything, right? I don't think I was comfortable yet to wear two-piece in middle school. One-piece. Two-piece. I was not comfortable wearing two-piece yet in middle school. And a t-shirt and shorts, a shawl cover-up, a cover-up. Your swimming gear was familiar even if the pool wasn't. You felt prepared. Oh, hi, Derek. You're so adorable. Derek bounded up to you in his own swim trunks, flagrantly ignoring the no running signs in his enthusiasm. Okay. Watch, I'm gonna do a cannonball. As soon as he knew he had your attention, he took off to the deep end of the pool. He built up speed and then leapt into the water. His curled up body created a huge splash on impact. You laughed, you applauded, you smiled, you gasped, you dashed away from flying water, you cheered. I think I would laugh. Your initial surprise snort turned into a full-body laugh as you saw him continue the show underwater. Still curled in a ball, he whirled forward and completely flipped himself over. He stayed under for a while longer. He touched the pool's bottom before he kicked himself back upward. When Derek's head popped out of the water, he swam to the edge of the pool and propped himself up with a grin. He watched you expectantly. You jumped in the pool, you walked over to the steps of the pool to get in. You sat on the edge and dipped your feet in. You plopped yourself on the nearest lounge chair. I think I would walk over to the steps. I am not bold enough to jump in. You dipped a toe in the water first. It was cool, but not horrible so. Not horrible so. You descended into the pool, letting yourself adjust to the temperature, and then made your way over to Derek. He slipped underwater once more to meet you halfway. As you enjoyed the moment, your thoughts fell back to how you'd gotten here. Last night, Derek had called with a different sort of request. You remembered that his voice had been a mix of nerves and hope. He had a favor to ask, very unexpected of him. Derek's mom needed him to watch his little brothers in the afternoon. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary, but that was part of his problem. Lately, he had feared that his sports skills weren't as sharp as he wanted them to be. He hadn't been able to practice soccer or football without the distraction of keeping an eye on his brothers. His idea to fix this had been to ask for help watching the kids. If you agreed to go to the park with him and his brothers, then you could manage his brothers while he had a chance to focus on practice. That's how he explained it. You said yes, and your moms had been more than happy to let you spend the day playing support for Derek. They said it would be a good opportunity to take on some more responsibility. To sweeten the deal, Derek suggested that you come by early so that you could both hit the pool. Nicholas would be sleeping in and George could spend some one-on-one time with Miss Suarez. So far, the plan had worked out. Ma dropped you off about 15 minutes ago, and both of Derek's brothers were fully occupied. Miss Suarez and George were back in the condo, putting together an 800-piece puzzle on the kitchen counter while Nicholas snoozed on the couch. You had time to kick back before the moment came to be in charge of small children. A sloshing sound pulled you back to the present. Derek had climbed out of the pool. I'm gonna jump again. Wanna join? I'm gonna sunbathe. I'd rather watch. Nope, I just want to swim some laps. I don't know how to swim. I'd rather watch. Alright, I can jump on my own. I'm sorry, Derek. Thanks. He flipped over and did a lazy backstroke over to the other side of the pool to give Derek some room. You wanted a good view, but you were not risking getting landed on. All good now? You know it. Cool. He gave you a thumbs up and took a quick breath, but Derek turned himself back towards the water, his brow furrowed before he launched. He bounded to the edge, the ball of his foot pushed off the last inches of concrete and he flew into the air. The momentum carried him and he spun over the water. He flipped forward, completing a full rotation before he crashed into the pool. You were dazzled as the water drops exploded from his graceful impact. He swam out in the water until he surfaced back at the wall he started at. Derek pushed himself up and swung his legs over in a single motion. On land once more, he tilted his head towards you for your reaction. When he confirmed you were still watching, he rubbed his hands together with glee. He turned around and gave himself enough space for the next dive. This time he required less of a runway. He pressed his hands to his sides and waddled back to the pool, not unlike a very misplaced penguin. When he got to the pool edge, he hopped and pulled his legs together. Derek cut right through the water, sinking like a pole. A pole? Pole. Why am I saying that word funny? Or does it just sound funny to me? He snickered, especially when he reemerged from the water with a squawk.
Right?
It's a penguin noise, right? I don't know. You were both laughing while he dragged himself over the edge and hopped to his feet. For the next jump, he kicked his legs up and bent his knees in a mock crouch. His face went under his chin, and he was diving thinking man statue. And after that, he bounced high enough to perform a toe touch in midair. On and on, he threw himself into the pool in ever-changing ways. It was a one-man Derek diving show. He would alternate between creative and skilled jumps. Some made you giggle, while others had you racking your brain if he'd ever mentioned being into gymnastics. Finally, when he was breathing hard, Derek called a break. He sat on the edge, and his feet dropped into the water as the rest of him collapsed on the concrete tiles. After a pause of silence, Derek spoke up. He pulled his fist to his cheek in thought, squishing his face slightly.
So...
Hey, I probably should have asked before, but have you ever babysat somebody before? No, is that bad? No, but how hard could it watching a couple kids be? Sometimes I babysit for some of my mom's friends. Does babysitting a dog count? You nodded yes, you shook your head. Well, I mean, I always had to babysit my younger brother, so I'll nod my head yeah. In this game, I don't have a younger brother, but me, the player, has already had experience. Derek gave you a thumbs up and beamed back at you. Bonus! Having you there is going to help a lot. When it's a 2-on-1 game with my brothers, it can get rough. Thinking back to your own experiences, you definitely agree. You're eager to take on the job, you felt nervous about being in charge, you were curious to see how the experience would go, you were prepared for it to be a pain, but you would do it anyway for Derek. I think I would be curious. Rather than dread or excitement, the coming afternoon was a mystery in your mind. You'd simply had to wait for it to arrive. After that interlude, you both continued to enjoy yourselves and your freedom until a little beeping alarm went off. That's time. He made his way to the lounge, sharing his stuff, and dug out a small portable clock. It buzzed until he found the stop button. Derek checked the time and narrowed his eyes at the glowing red numbers. He shot you a thumbs up.
Let's go.
Alright. You helped him gather the towels, grab the rest of the stuff, and then try to drip as little as possible while rushing through the halls of the complex. When you reached his apartment, he dumped everything in his arms on the ground and scrambled to find his keys. Just give me a second. I don't want to knock or anything in case Nicholas is still asleep. He finally spied a soccer ball keychain and snatched up his keys from where they were tangled in his towel. He inserted the key in the lock and the both of you shuffled inside the Suarez home. Is there a home? I thought they were just... Am I here? In the city with them? 3 heads swiveled to face the 2 of you, gazes being drawn to the bundles of neon towels coming in. I thought they were just in a hotel. Miss Suarez and George were sitting on bar stools while Nicholas perched on the couch itself with an excited grin. They were working on a puzzle. On your left, Derek leaned closer and spoke under his breath.
I figured.
He's awake.
Derek's back!
Quick as a blink, Nicholas scrambled on his hands and feet and zipped across the black marble of the counter. Tiny cardboard puzzle pieces scattered.
Ah!
Nicholas, the puzzle! Despite George's frustration, the little whirlwind didn't seem to hear. He was on a mission to reach his bigger brother, not even stopping when he hit the end of the counter. Nicholas stumbled off the edge and Derek instinctively moved forward with a gasp, dropping all his pool stuff except for the towel wrapped around him. The Suarez caught Nicholas with her forearms hooking under his chest, snatching him from midair. Oof! She hugged her son, holding him securely against her body. A chorus of relief sighs filled the rooms. Nicholas still paid no mind to his trail of disasters and began to squirm. He just wanted down already. Derek took another steps forward, making his way over to the scene. Miss Suarez carefully held Nicholas out, her hands under his armpit, and safely set him down on his feet. Nicholas immediately wrapped his arm around Derek's legs. Derek chuckled while tugging up at his towel so Nicholas wouldn't pull it off. Hold on, Nico, you're gonna get wet. Nicholas giggled mischievously and snuggled closer. Derek snuck a quick peek over his shoulder back at you and shrugged. Just as warned, Nicholas now had a damp splotch on his shirt. Hi, everybody told Nicholas he's worried you. You asked George if his puzzle was alright. Nicholas, I'm here too, you know. He waited beside Derek quietly. Nicholas, I'm here too, you know. He smiled at Nicholas, trying to make it obvious that you were joking. He didn't respond, instead just continued to latch onto Derek.
Well.
Miss Suarez's tone was warm and with a certain amount of humor to it. She rubbed her hands together and stood up. Derek and Michigo are in charge now. Make sure you listen to them. George sourly picked at the puzzle pieces, but gave a grumbled noise to signify he had heard. I'm going to head off to my appointment. She went to gather some things, officially putting you and Derek in charge, but there wasn't 1 second to settle into your new position. We're going swimming. Nicholas looked up and stared with huge shining eyes. Derek reflexively stiffened. How could he escape the puppy dog look? Derek's eyebrows creased, a small sign of nerves compared to the smooth placating sound of his voice. No, even better. He leaned down and lowered his voice like he was about to share a secret.
I've got a plan.
We're gonna go to the park. Nicholas... Nicholas's face, bro. He's not pleased. He's like, the park? I want to go to the pool. Nicholas instantly frowned. He wasn't convinced by Derek's act. He grabbed at Derek's towel. You were swimming. Yeah, but I'm not anymore. I'm going to the park and you can come with me. The littlest Suarez whined and stomped his foot. His hands balled up around the neon fabric. Harshly enough, he almost took the towel from Derek. I want to go to the pool. I want to see Michiko's swimsuit. What? What? Derek's jaw dropped. Neither of you were prepared for that one. Did you hear Nicholas right? You looked down at yourself, currently wrapped in a bright fuzzy towel. You switched your gaze at Derek's youngest brother, your brain trying to make sense of what was happening. Why would you want that? Why does Nicholas want anything? George rolled his eyes and Derek, you have some brothers. George rolled his eyes and continued mumbling into the counter. It was obvious to him, and he couldn't believe the rest of you were taking so long to catch up. Because Derek does. What? Nicholas wants to see me in a swimsuit because he knows Derek wants to see me in a swimsuit? He already saw me. You felt stunned. You couldn't help feeling amused. You suddenly felt extremely bashful. You only felt more confused. You didn't know what to feel about. Bashful. Derek narrowed his eyes and whispered harshly.
Seriously?
Nicholas, George, you're gonna put me into an early grave. He took a deep breath as he stared at the ceiling. It took him a moment to face you. His voice was firm for someone at his level of embarrassment. I must have said something about hoping you'd remember to bring your swimsuit. I was excited for us to be able to swim, so I did want you to have one. Nicholas does not actually want to see you in a swimsuit. He doesn't even know why he'd want that. He's just saying stuff. I'd hope so. He's only 6 and we're like, what? What's middle school like? We're 13. You scratched the back of your neck as you focused on anything other than Derek or his family. The apartment has some nice plants. Pleasant, not plastic, and certainly not awkward plants. You snuck another look at Nicholas. He had crossed his arms high on his chest and squished his neck down far enough to rest his chin on his waist. I want to go swimming. His pout intensified when he said it again. He was a very angry little baby. Derek tilted back on his heels, once again driven to look at the ceiling by the strain of this kid. You glanced up there yourself without thinking about it. It was a calm white color with a few light fixtures. When you squeezed, you noticed something small and green. It appeared to be one of those sticky hands for kids. Was this another present from the youngest Juarez? You tuned back into Derek. He appeared to have made a decision. Alright, I promise that you can go swimming too, but only after the park. We'll go to the pool as soon as we come back. But the promise officially made Nicholas lit up. He snatched one of Derek's hands.
No.
We gotta get to the park so I can swim. While Nicholas celebrated, Derek closed his eyes and some of the worried creases on his face smoothed out. Derek, there's lunch packed in the fridge. Dad will be back before dinner.
I gotcha.
Gotcha. Thanks, Mom.
Have a good one.
Miss Flores waved and collected the last of her things, her purse off of the side table. She ruffled George's hair on her way out. You and Derek were alone with the kids. We should really stop leaving puddles everywhere. He gestured at the drops of water pooling at his feet. You read my mind. You and Derek took turns changing. You went first while you could faintly hear Derek impressing on his brothers to listen to you too. But whatever. He must have convinced them to behave for now, as neither George nor Nicholas acted up when Derek took his turn drying off and clothing himself. Can you get our lunch from the fridge? I'm gonna pack my gear. No problem. He walked casually to the kitchen, and George hadn't moved from his bar stool even once since you gotten back. Meanwhile, Nicholas followed Derek like a possessed shadow that was even more energetic than the original. He zipped around, occasionally trying to place things in Derek's backpack for him. So far, Derek had said no to the rubber duck, but he had agreed to bring an extra pair of socks that Nicholas had determined were absolutely necessary.
Okay.
Got everything. Derek returned with the backpack in one hand, Nicholas's small hand in the other. We're going, George. Ready, Michiko? I was born ready.
Sure.
Poor George. He seems like the sweetest. He pushed away from the counter and finally hopped off the chair with the enthusiasm of a plank of wood. We're going! Derek had his smile at Nicholas's echo and ushered everyone outside. He locked the condo behind him and he began the trip to the nearby park. The park for the Suarez boys was the big park for your family. Their condo complex was only a short distance to the public outdoor recreational area Mom sometimes drove you to. It was still a beautiful day outside and had only gotten a few degrees warmer from your morning swim. The field was bustling with other groups of people enjoying themselves. Derek led the way to a wide open part of the grass that no one else was using. He stopped in the middle of the field and turned 180 degrees to face the little boys behind him. He shrugged his backpack off his shoulders and dropped it to the ground. He kneeled down the root around it inside it. He kneeled down to root around it, around inside it. George and Nicholas waited in place for their brother. Derek gathered a couple things in his arms before pushing off the ground with his knee and to get up again. He held a football in his left hand and a soccer ball in his right. Alright, Nicholas, George, I've got to practice, but you can too. Which one do you want?
Okay.
Football. Real ball. Real ball. The soccer ball? You raised an eyebrow at their shouts. Derek leaned over to you and whispered with a laugh. He means a soccer ball. It's real because it's actually ball-shaped. Is that a problem? They want both. Derek simply grinned. I thought so. He tossed George the football first. George caught it from out of the air with one hand and began to bounce it up and down his fingers, feeling the weight of it. Derek popped the soccer ball gently over to Nicholas, who watched his brother intently. Nicholas had to catch it with both hands. He wrapped his arms around the ball and hugged it close to his chest. And with this, his brother's taken care of. Derek crouched again to reveal a third ball. He brought a second soccer ball. Derek had been prepared. He then sprung back to his feet, another problem diverted. George, Nicholas, you can use this half of the field. I'll use that half. Michiko can be your ref, so you don't get too far from her, right? Okay. George tossed his football in the air, preoccupied. It spun in an arc downward. I'm gonna practice. Nicholas embraced his soccer ball tighter, pressing his cheek into it. You wonder how he practiced with it when the equipment was about to be as big as his head. The child looked completely content with the world, but Derek's eyes narrowed. Once again, he shared some Nicholas info into your ear. Watch him. It's not over. He copies what I say, but it's not what he means. Oh, so this little boy here is a troublemaker. Even though he looks also like a troublemaker. He snuck a peek at Nicholas. He appeared so innocent, clutching his ball and staring at a patch of clover in the grass. But you'd interacted with him enough to not question his potential for trouble. You'd make sure to keep an eye on the kid. Don't worry, I got this.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michiko, you're a lifesaver. Derek held his soccer ball in both hands and cheered. Bye, bros. Bye.
Bye.
Derek put on a smile as he picked up his bag, tucked his soccer ball under an arm, and jogged to his side of the field. He didn't even have time to lose. He stood with the younger Suarez boys, effectively turned to lose. George stared at you with uncertainty, while Nicholas's mischievous smirk could only make you guess what he was thinking. He scares me. This child right here scares me. You aren't going to make Mr. and Miss Suarez regret letting you come. And you especially weren't going to disappoint Derek. You were going to watch those boys. Time to be in charge. I'm going to play over there. He pointed vaguely to the opposite side of the field from Derek and trotted off to entertain himself. He let him go without argument. George wasn't the problem child. When you saw him settle and throwing around his football and chasing, he smiled. You would only need to manage Nicholas. You aimed your grins towards him, but instead of being in the clover patch, he was missing. You snapped your head back and forth until you spotted him in a fumbling dash across the grass, struggling to keep his soccer ball from slipping out of his small arms. When Derek said watch him, he had really meant it. Well, you just had to push up your sleeves. He wasn't the first troublemaker you had ever dealt with, and he wasn't going to be the last. Ran over, picked him up. Come back here, young man. You ran over with that. I won't speak. I'm gonna run over. You were grateful for your longer legs since the kid was quick. You closed the gap between the two of you and stood in front of him. He didn't look up until he bumped right into your legs. Nicholas snickered. He tried to dash around you, so you had to shift to the left to block his progress. He then went right, and you speedily sidestepped. Soon you both were going back and forth as though you were actually playing this game of soccer, and Nicholas was trying to get past you to score. The soccer ball tumbled from his arms. Then you kicked the ball back to him and suggested playing. Oh, hey, Nicholas, you're hanging out with me just like Derek does. And you were just totally over... No, man. Kick it back. Let's play, I'm gonna get it. He squealed at the idea. He chased the ball, determined to beat you to it, and wound up to the kick. He overshot the angle of his foot, and the ball bounced off awkwardly. Then you were the one after the soccer ball. It didn't go that far. You let Nicholas get it again so he could continue to gradually kick the ball across the field. He sent some strands of grass into the air along with the ball on his second go. Darn, I'm gonna get you. Nicholas cackled while bumping the ball along. No, I'm gonna win. When you next got close to the soccer ball, he switched strategies. Nicholas grabbed it in his hand so he could simply run for it. That's not how soccer works. It's mine. He laughed off his blatant rule breaking and started running around after Nicholas. The only times your gaze strayed from the little Suarez was when you blinked or sent the occasional glance toward George's way. George continued to enjoy his time at the park without any need for assistance, so you spent most of your energy on the mischief maker. And after smoothing out the initial bump of the afternoon, things evened out. At least things were fine until the trial known as lunch arrived. It started with the reappearance of Derek. His presence sent Nicholas into hyperdrive. He pounced on the tips of his toes and waved both his hands frantically. Derek's back! He tackled his older brother and latched around Derek's left leg. George, like half of the entire park, noticed the shout. He jogged over to see if any important updates were happening without him. Derek winked. Hey, bros!
What's up?
Hi, Michiko. Hope you're doing alright. As he spoke, he let his bag drop to the ground. He crouched over it and scrounged up the packed lunches. It's all good. Oh, yeah, it's just great. I don't know how I do this all the time, you know, and I'm having fun, he shrugged. I think I will be having fun because I'm playing with, Nicholas. That's awesome. You beamed back at him. Despite being a handful, you were enjoying Nicholas. He kept you on your toes. Are you having fun, Nicholas? Yeah. Me too. What about you, George?
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad. Derek set aside the 3 paper bags in the grass. One in front of Nicholas, another next to George, and a third went to you. Derek kept the 4th lunch inside his backpack. He only pulled a water bottle out from it and closed the bag back up.
Okay.
Nicholas, you gotta eat now with Michiko and George. Nicholas clenched Derek's jeans more desperately as he whined. You're not gonna eat with me. Derek scratched the back of his head and gave a longing glance back to where he had been practicing. Do you mind, Michiko? I was hoping I'd have more time to practice. He bit his lip, hope clear on his face. He had confidence that you could handle lunch alone. You should really eat lunch too. I'll handle it, okay? Sure could look like your practice gave an okay sign. You should really eat lunch too. It'll be fine, I promise. Okay. Nicholas's whimpering never stopped stopped being high-pitched background noises. Derek ruffled his hair. Hey, check this out. He picked up Nicholas's soccer ball and placed it on top of his own head. Nicholas's jaw dropped theatrically as Derek fully stood up while keeping it in balance.
Wow!
Nicholas cheered and jumped up and down, still holding on to Derek's leg. Derek bent his knees and then popped up fast enough to launch the ball in the air. He caught it with his head again. Nicholas let go of his brother to clap. Derek grinned at Nicholas, but his gaze flicked to you for a second. The show over, Derek inclined his head and let the soccer ball drop into his hands. He held it out to Nicholas. Make sure to eat a good lunch, okay? Then you can go get back to practicing. Okay. Nicholas spoke into the soccer ball he had cuddled to his face. He had been starstruck enough that he couldn't disagree with anything his biggest brother said. Derek waved at you and George before heading off to where he'd left his soccer ball, carrying only the water bottle with him. George promptly took a seat in the grass by the lunch bags. Nicholas put the soccer ball on his head. It immediately rolled off. He just tried again. He reached over to the lunches. Each bag had a clearly written name in black marker ink. George collected his bag. He had yours, and he attempted to get the last one into its proper owner. But Nicholas showed zero interest in the bag. You imagined he would probably have been more interested in Derek's lunch bag, even though they probably had the same meals. George scoffed, knowing his brother was going to be difficult again. He took a sandwich from his bag. From looks alone, you guessed you guessed it as sliced deli turkey, a pale-colored cheese, and some veggies. When Nicholas, clearly busy, you took his sandwich out for him. The sandwich was ham and some sort of orangey cheese, cheddar almost certainly. You offered the food directly to Nicholas, and he still didn't bite. He wanted to play. How about I help you eat while you practice? Nicholas, if you want to play, then you have to eat. If you eat, I'll hold the ball in your head for you, deal? If you want to play, you have to eat. I don't want to have to take the ball, but I will if you keep using it as a distraction. No! He stomped his foot, raising an eyebrow. You crossed your arms and tried to look as commanding as you could. It's mine. Your food is also yours, so you should eat it. I will. With a huff, Nicholas held the ball behind his back with one hand and snatched your sandwich from you with the other. He took a few steps and plopped down in the grass. The ball rolled towards the space between you both, but you were more concerned about his lunch. Nicholas crossed a leg under him, and his frustration disappeared almost instantly with his first bite. That was one sibling fed and one more to go. You glanced over at George and saw that he was already partway through eating his lunch. Satisfied, you finally decided it was safe to pick up your own sandwich. Finishing the last corner of your square-shaped meal, you wondered if Miss Suarez had talked to one Aromie beforehand about lunch. The sandwich was made how you would have had it at home. She was either prepared or very lucky, but considering what her oldest son was like, you were guessing luck had nothing to do with it. Along with the sandwiches, there were also bags of carrots, celery, and a few cookies. Between the three of you, it wasn't long before all snacks were gone. With nothing left to nibble on, Nicholas yawned and curled up in the grass, cuddling the soccer ball against his chest. George stood up watching his little brother fall asleep. Once he was certain that Nicholas was down for the count, he started cleaning up the trash. You admired the maturity he showed for his age. It wasn't just Derek who had the streak after all. You helped gather the trash while musing about the Suarez brothers. Derek was the oldest and his parents relied on, while Nicholas was the baby of the family, and for a little kid it was forced to be reckoned with. George was the one stuck in the middle. Thank you for helping me with this. Thanks for being such a good kid to babysit. I saw your football throws earlier. They were really good. I like getting the chance to spend time together. Gave him an encouraging smile. Let's compliment him on his football. George spun around on his heel. He seemed stunned, like he wasn't sure if he imagined a compliment or not. In a couple years, you could totally get on a junior football team. You nodded and a blush grew on his face until it reached his ears. Aww. He hurriedly went back to what he was doing before. George was embarrassed, but he also noticed there was a bounce in his step that wasn't there before. The park suddenly felt empty with Nicholas asleep. He took up a lot of space despite his tiny size. Chuckling to yourself, you found a comfortable spot in the grass to scan the area for Derek. You eventually caught sight of him running in the distance. From here, you could tell Derek was persistent about his practice. He went back and forth, repeating the same sets of moves, reassessing and refining for his form every time. Though it wasn't long before he paused to wipe his brow with his black wristband. Derek happened to glance your way at that moment and realized that he had an audience of one. He gave a huge wave with both hands that required he crossed both his arms over his head. And before you knew it, Derek's strides were bringing him back over to you and his brothers.
Phew.
That's it. I'm gonna be done with practice. I'm back. Welcome back. So you're ready to go pro now? I'm not that good. Yet. Oh. He's so cute. Just look at him. He's so cute. Derek shook his head incredulously. The confidence in your voice had his cheeks flushing just as much as the exercise. Thanks for watching George and Nicholas. I didn't mean for it to be so long. I finally got to be the big sibling. I think I feel like an old tired parent now. It's okay, I'm happy I can help you out. You owe me one? No, I'm happy to help him out. The sincerity in your voice had Derek bashfully keeping his eyes on his shoes instead. Your heart rate picked up as he chose to respond in kind. I'll probably end up saying it again, but thanks, Michiko. You're a lifesaver. Next, he shifted his attention over to his brothers. George gave a little wave. He'd been waiting patiently for his big brother to wrap up his conversation with you. We're going back. George simply got up, not needing any more guidance, while Derek kneeled in the grass to nudge Nicholas out of dreamland. A single eye cracked open at first, and then they both popped wide open when he realized who was with him.
Derek!
Nicholas sprang off the ground, wrapping his arms around his big brother like a vice grip and nuzzled into his chest. Derek gave Nicholas's head a single pat. Practice was good today. Let's go home.
Let's go home.
Nicholas's hushed voice echoing his brother's put a warm smile on your face. Stretching your arm high overhead, you surveyed the area to make sure that nothing was left behind. You were all clear, and it felt good to have another solo round of babysitting successfully under your belt. With your leadership, no one got lost, injured, swallowed something they shouldn't have, or even declared that they hated you for eternity. So in your book, you'd say it went fairly well. Who did any of that? The 15-minute walk back from the park passed by pleasantly. The late afternoon sun fell behind you and your shadow soon stretched across the sidewalk. You wiggled your fingers and then exaggerated your hand movements in order to watch your shadows change. Meanwhile, next to you, Derek was finally eating his lunch. Although he had to eat his sandwich with the hand Nicholas wasn't clasping tightly onto. George entertained himself with the football he still carried. He periodically tossed it up in the air and caught it again. You could easily imagine how often the three of them had made this trip before, with only the three of them, but you didn't feel out of place strolling alongside the group. It felt natural. Beaming, you found your gaze settling on Derek again. You knew without a doubt that the way you felt was because of him. He was so good at making you feel welcome. Aww. Until you made it safely back and Derek dropped his bag on the floor with a quiet sigh of relief. And hope he had to take things easy. And any hope he had to take things easy for a second immediately evaporated.
Going to the pool as soon as we come back.
Nicholas's joy was palpable, parroting back Derek's promise from earlier in the day. As the words dawned on him, Derek closed his eyes and breathed deeply. Yup, we are. Get ready. And that was all the approval Nicholas and George needed. They both dashed off to their shared bedroom to get changed. Derek sluggishly opened his eyes, but his tiredness softened when he looked at you.
It's okay.
Practice is done. If you want to stay up here until your moms can come get you, that's cool. Derek gave a partial shrug and then ran a hand through his hair shyly. We don't have to go swimming again. But I want to hang out with you. I've been having fun. I'm not mad about being here. What? You promised we'd get to go to the pool again. I'm not gonna let you be outnumbered by George and Nicholas. I don't want to be here by myself. I want to hang out with you. He's blushing. How cute. The tips of his ears burned red at your declaration, but he didn't turn away from you. He spoke cheerfully instead. Thanks. Me too, Michiko. Oh, look, all the boys are ready. He has a little life vest on. It wasn't much longer before the younger kids came running out to rejoin you and Derek. They both wore their neon-colored swimsuits and had towels wrapped around their shoulders.
Awesome.
Nice job. You remembered your floaty vest, Nicholas. Yeah, floaty vest. Totally. What did I call it? A life vest? Derek kneeled down to make sure the safety device was properly secured. Nicholas stood tall with his chest out proudly. He didn't fear their scrutinization. I did the straps for him. Perfect, thanks. George brightened just as his younger brother had. Standing back up, Derek shifted his attention to you. Same quick change strategy from earlier? Yeah. You darted off to get changed first. Derek nodded seriously when you returned to take over for him. He re-emerged a couple minutes later and diligently went over to the counter to write something down. Curious, you inched closer. Just gotta leave a note so Dad knows where we are. Then we can go. Okay, sounds good. Everything was squared away, as Derek was always sure to do, and the four of you marched right back out of the apartment for another excursion. By the time the distinct smell of chlorine tickled your nose, the sun had fallen low in the sky. You circled around some nearby lounge chairs and deemed them capable of keeping your things safe. Inspecting the gleaming water, you noticed that George and Nicholas hadn't moved towards the pool yet. Both of the little boys were watching Derek like hawks. You pick up enough this afternoon to know it was because George didn't want to do anything without permission, and Nicholas didn't want to do anything Derek wasn't doing.
I'm on it.
Here I go. And Derek knew himself knew it too. He didn't keep them waiting. Derek offered his brothers an encouraging way to inch drove over to the pool. Follow him in the water, you ran to beat him in. You remained nice, dry, and solid land. Follow him in the water, why not? Wait for me. Derek paused at the pool's edge and glanced over his shoulder. He beamed at you. Alright, on 3. 1, 2, 3. You simultaneously leapt into the pool, making a huge splash. After a few seconds, you made your way to the surface to take a breath. Derek, meanwhile, stayed under. The other Swarra's sons followed. George jumped in without any hesitation, but Nicholas sped right to the edge, only to come to an abrupt stop. His toes curled around the edge of the pool, and his lips were pressed into a tight frown. Nicholas tipped his head and stared down at the water, clutching his hands together. He was scared to jump. Nicholas would rather the pool come the rest of the way to him, but it wasn't being a good sport. Derek and George popped out of the water with matching wide grins and droplets clinging to the tips of their hair. Neither were surprised that they were missing their baby brother. Alright! That was awesome. Nicholas's cry for help came out in a tiny, impatient squeak. He began wiggling in place. Derek chuckled and swam over to the shallower spot. The 6-year-old followed closely, toddling along the edge. When his feet touched the pool's solid bottom, Derek stood up. He kindly held his arms out towards his brother.
This is gonna be great.
Come on, Nico, the water's fine. Trusting him completely, Nicholas let go of his fear. He took a step over the side and walked into his favorite person's hold. Derek embraced Nicholas as he dropped against his chest. Then Derek slowly lowered him closer to the water before he completely let his little brother go. Nicholas bobbed under with a small splash and broke out again in an instant like a buoy. Buoy? He was bursting at the seams with excitement.
Wow!
Nicholas made the most of his new floating freedom by dog paddling around the shallow end. Checking on George, he noticed that he was sticking to the center of the pool. He bounced himself from the floor to the surface for air and then pushed back down to do it all over again. He leapt all around in a circle. Derek rested an arm across the pool's edge and took a moment to watch his brothers too. He swam over to Derek and settled against the wall with him. You closed your eyes and sighed. The water's temperature was pleasantly warm against the cool evening air. Derek kept his main focus on his family, though he spared a moment to tilt his head in your direction. A few beads of water trailed from his hairline down the side of his jaw. Babysitting went as well as you thought, huh? Even better, probably. They were both really good. Neither of them bit me or anything. Perfect.
Honestly,
My brothers are fun, some of the time. He chuckled at his own joke and ran a damp hand down his face to try getting at least some of the water off. The final rays of sunlight cast a warm glow in his skin, and the pool sparkled as he finally turned his attention directly towards you. You felt toastier all of a sudden, like someone had pulled the sun back up to the center of the sky. Derek's mouth turned to his usual wonderful smile. I don't know what I'd do without them. I think they're great. You sound like a proud dad. Well, George is good, but Nicholas is trouble with a capital T. I think Nicholas is way cuter than all the other Suarez's. Unanimity shrugged. You sound like a proud dad. He smirked at your teasing, but it quickly lost its force as his cheeks grew pink. Derek hid his face in his hands. I don't even want to think about being a real parent right now. Being the oldest kid is enough for me. Shaking his head, he kept his brothers in his sight. The affection returned to his expression. I'm proud of them, though. George and Nicholas remained engrossed with their own watery adventures while you and Derek kept track of them. You were in mid-conversation when the sound of footsteps echoed off the walls surrounding the pool. Derek shot an arm out of the water and waved at the newcomer. Dad!
Good evening.
Aw, hello, Mr. Suarez. George is the only one who's like, Dad? All the Suarez boys eagerly paddled over to the end of the pool where their father stood. They moved together in the water with their heads beside each other and their legs kicked out behind them like a pile of sea
welcome
pups.
home.
Thank you.
Aww. Mr. Suarez's voice was sweet as he observed his children's happy faces. Eventually he spotted you as well and he tucked his fingers into the edge of his vest with vigor. Oh, this is a pool party today, You know, a party should have the proper food. Let's order pizza for dinner tonight. Yeah! Laughing with excitement, Nicholas started smacking the palms of his hands against the water surface, making several bursting splashes. George flicked the droplets from the tips of his fingers at Nicholas in retaliation. Chuckling over the scene, Mr. Suarez brought a hand up and held onto his chin. He scratched at his beard with his thumb. Half cheese, half pepperoni for the first, correct? Yes! Pepperoni! Nicholas threw both his arms in the air as he cheered. Mr. Suarez nodded, pleased his littlest one still had predictable tastes.
Wonderful.
Okay, and me and Veggie Supreme for Irene and I on the second. He settled his gaze on Derek and you for the final decision. Suggestions for what the final half should be. Michiko, you pick. You floated over closer to Derek as you thought about it. More cheese, more pepper, more Supreme on veggies, all meat, barbecue chicken, Hawaiian. Could I get something other than pizza? It doesn't matter to me. You pick. Derek, what do you normally get? What does Derek normally get? Usually the barbecue chicken, but you should get whatever you want. I like the other stuff too, so don't worry. In that case, barbecue chicken. Cause I am a simp. I am a simp. And at the end of the day, Derek did a lot too, okay? I was just his plus one. Derek gave you a big thumbs up for that. So in full, half cheese and half pepperoni, half Supreme and half barbecue chicken.
Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you, children. I'll put the order in now. I'll come back to let you know when it's ready. But until then, continue to play. Thanks, Dad. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, I'll be waiting. I mean, I never had barbecue chicken on pizza before. Typically, when I order pizza, I customize the shit out of it. Your girl is not a simple girl, right? I'm gonna add so many toppings. The people that make my pizza probably hate me. But I don't get pizza that often because lactose intolerant. And that cheese will fuck me up. Mrs. Suarez closed the pool gate behind him, leaving you kids to your fun. In Mr. Suarez's absence, Derek took charge again. Alright, you heard it. Dad's ordering pizza, so it'll be here in like 30 minutes. So think fast. What's the last thing you want to do before we have to leave the pool? Nicholas furrowed his brow, thinking as hard as he could. He scrunched his face together in frustration when nothing came to mind. Meanwhile, George put a hand on his chin and tilted his head to the side. He stared up and off into space as he considered the question. He left it open for the younger kids to decide whether distracted you made the first strike in a splash fight. Why not? The younger Suarez brothers may have been unsure or overwhelmed with how they wanted to spend their remaining pool time, but you weren't. You knew exactly what you wanted to do. You subtly angled your position in the water, carefully deciding your plan of attack. The corner of your mouth bent, and you flung a mighty splash towards Derek. He ended up with a face full of water, and he sputtered before shaking it off with laughter. As he regained his composure, Derek brushed a hand down his face again and wiped some droplets away. Michiko, I'm sure you're aware of what this means. Derek's stare narrowed with a fierce, amused look of determination. You matched it and gave an added slow nod. I believe I do.
It's on.
This means war. He swiftly sent a shot of water in your direction. Nicholas cackled at your exchange, and he started to excitedly beat the water surface and sent droplets crashing in all directions. You twisted away from their attacks, and the second the water settled, you struck. Pushing your hands forward, you sent another big wave crash towards the brothers. Derek sent splashes with both hands on each of his side, juggling you and Nicholas. Nicholas pulled water, cupping it into his hands, and he threw it into the air. The droplets carelessly poured down on everyone. Nicholas was dangerous in this fight. He was willing to take a hit to get a hit. Out of the four of you, George enacted the best defense strategy. He took a deep breath and held it while he slid under the water. Only his hands remained at the surface, and they rapidly splashed in all directions. George's strategy kept you all on your toes in order to avoid a scatter shot. Whenever he came up for air, Derek made sure to be ready to take the shot. It was a grand battle. The four of you thoroughly enjoyed your time at the pool. It flew by so fast that you were surprised when you spotted Mr. Suarez cruising down the water's edge once more. Dinner is here, and even better, Mom's home. Yay! The youngest Suarez threw his wet confetti into the air one more time. Even his dad wasn't safe from it. Mr. Suarez took it in stride and wiped his glasses against his vest. Derek was out of breath, but he beamed. Let's go get some food. Yeah. Mr. Suarez led the way to the apartment, and the four of you kids marched with an eager spring in your steps. Despite being wrapped in towels, you dripped water the whole way there. Well, that's not good. The savory smell of hot cheese and garlic crust was there to greet you when you arrived at the door. You could hear the musical words of Miss Suarez, too.
Welcome.
Hi. Hi, Mom.
Hi.
Feeling a bit awkward and out of place, you gave a tiny wave. Miss Suarez didn't miss it, and her voice softened as she spoke to you first. Hello, Michiko. I hope you had fun today. I did. We had lots of fun.
That's great.
Very good. Miss Suarez then went over to the kitchen where the food was set on the counter. She popped the boxes open and delightedly glanced over at her husband. This was such a good idea. Thank you. Mr. Suarez dipped his head in a tiny bow. He followed that by gesturing a hand towards the food.
Well then.
Come get dinner, youngest to oldest for order. Despite the order given, it was no surprise that George was the one who moved first. He figured Nicholas would wait for Derek, even if he didn't have to. George tore off a paper towel from the bowl and used it to grab a slice of plain cheese pizza. He hot-footed it back over to the entryway, standing there so he wouldn't bring water in further into the apartment. You can go next, Michiko. It'll be easier that way. This food smelled even better up close. I love me a Supreme, because that's like literally everything. But I want to try Derek's pizza slice, so. You hurried back to the entryway with your dinner. Derek went next, tiptoeing over with Nicholas at his heels. He grabbed a slice of pepperoni and passed it to Nicholas. Derek then grabbed a slice of barbecue chicken for himself, but instead of going to the entryway, he went to an open space on the floor. You curiously watched as Derek laid his towel on the floor, then sat down and crossing his legs. Nicholas plopped down the towel right next to him and started on one of his pizza crust corners. You decided to stay standing with George. Let's not leave him alone. You didn't mind eating on your feet, but you also didn't give yourself much time to think about it. Taking a big mouthful, you focused on filling your belly instead. Finally, Mr. and Miss Suarez got their slices of pizza. They stood in the living room in between the spots their sons had taken.
So?
How did you spend your day while we were out? We did lots of things. In between taking big bites of pizza, the Suarez family started taking turns telling stories about their day. Nicholas recounted the events of the day with the most enthusiasm, even though they were the same plot points from his brother's stories and the ones you witnessed firsthand. From his perspective, the events were almost mythically amazing. Storytelling was hungry work, so the slices didn't last long at all. The food was chipped away piece by piece until everyone was stuffed. Nicholas lay down on the floor, limbs stretched out and still wrapped in his towel. He was completely tuckered from the day. Mrs. Suarez plucked him off the floor and held him under one arm. Bath time, come on, Junior.
Yes, Dad.
Nicholas accepted his fate and his arms hung limply. George crumpled up his paper towel into a ball and tossed it into the trash. He followed his dad.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gregorio. Gregorio? That's the husband's name, yeah? Miss Suarez watched him go with gentle affection in her eyes. She patted her husband's shoulder as he passed by and then strolled over to you and Derek. And thank you for a good day's work. I appreciate you both taking care of Nicholas and George today. Her cheeriness reminded you so much of Derek. She pointed with her thumb over her shoulder. Dad and I will take them from here. Thanks, Mom. You can see the wave of relief wash over him as clearly as actual water you had just swam in. I'll keep an ear out for the phone. Pamela says she'll call when they're on their way here to get me Chico. Okay. After that, Miss Suarez excused herself to go help get George and Nicholas ready for bedtime. Bedtime? I thought they were going to go bath time first. When she disappeared down the hall, Derek leaned back on the palms of his hands. He lazily rolled his head in your direction.
Hey.
We can get dressed again. Then would you want to hang out in my room until your moms get here? Sounds like a plan to me. Did they go straight to bed instead of taking a bath? You can get changed first. Since I'm using the bathroom to change, I guess so. He stretched his legs out on the floor while he stood up. You could feel a slight ache in your muscles from today's activities. It wasn't bad, given your all during your babysitting adventure. Gathering your things up in your arms, you left to get changed. It wasn't long before you and Derek went over to his room for some siblingless free time. Oh, this is his space? Yeah, it looks like Derek for sure. It's very grown up looking for a middle schooler. Derek opened his bedroom door and gestured for you to lead the way. You went in while he followed close behind, shutting the door once more. Your eyes widened to scan the small space. Usually you were outside when you hung out with Derek, so this was the first time you'd been inside his room. Within reach of his neatly made bed was a bookshelf filled with novels. Various scattered soccer balls and footballs stuck out around the books and furniture. Things were arranged and organized with the same care Derek put into most things he did. If there was more time, you were sure there were tons more trinket and treasures to spot here. Like a game of I Spy, it wasn't big, but Derek made the most of his small piece of the world. Your room is so cool. There are a lot of footballs and soccer balls in here. Are you sure you have enough soccer balls and footballs? You felt nervous being here. This is amazing. Your room is cool.
Really?
Yeah? Do you not see it? Bashful Derek scratched the side of his neck. He cheerfully watched you look over his things until it clicked. Whoa, we've never hung out in my room before, huh? Nope, it's the first time. That's kind of weird to think about.
Sorry.
But anyway, sorry I don't have any chairs in here. You can sit on my bed if you want. Don't worry, there's tons of places to sit in the living room, so this balances things out. Derek chuckled at that. Still, he felt a bit awkward and rubbed at the back of his neck. Thanks for offering your bed, though. You stayed standing, you sat on the edge of his mattress, you laid down across his bed. Oh, ain't that a little bold? To just lay down? Well, my girl is kind of directing this route with him about her crushing. I don't see it happening yet, but lay down. Why not? My girl's tired. You sighed loudly, letting yourself melt into the cozy blankets. Derek crossed his arms and laughed loudly. Sure, get comfortable. Don't mind if I do, obviously. You playfully propped yourself up on your elbow and rested your chin on the palm of your hand. Derek crossed over to the foot of his bed and sat there on the end of it. His jaws stretched open in a huge yawn that he quickly covered with his hand.
Good job, team.
We're finally done. There was no missing the proud satisfaction burning his green eyes, but you could also consequently see the places where he was wilting. Sometimes you kind of worried about how he threw himself wholeheartedly into things all the time. Besides spending the day babysitting, how often do you babysit? I'm glad it's over. I hope I was at least helpful today. Derek, don't ask me to watch those kids again, you teased. How often do you babysit?
Well,
None of those questions or options I cared for. He shifted his gaze away from you. Derek pinched at the blanket under his fingers while he thought about your question. Pretty often, I guess, not all the time. Oh. Derek stretched his arms high in the air and yawned again. His eyelids drooped as he turned towards you. Gradually, the carefree warmth faded from his demeanor. His face fell into a quiet frown when his hands had returned to his lap.
you don't have to.
You don't have to do it again, Michiko. Whether it's a good time or a bad time, it's just a lot of time, and you have your own things to deal with. Your brows bent at that. Tilting your head, you couldn't help but think about how much of Derek's day went to his brothers. It definitely didn't seem to match how things were with your sister and you. But then, as if summoned by your thoughts about him, the bedroom door creaked open just enough to let a giggling Nicholas slip in. He threw his hands in the air. "I'm dressed!" With a loud thud, the door swung fully open, and George marched in with an extremely annoyed scowl. He put his hand on his hips. You sprung up and kicked your legs over to the side of the mattress. Lazing on the bed wasn't on the schedule anymore. Nicholas, we're playing in the living room, not Derek's room. George reached for his younger brother, but Nicholas scurried up onto the bed. He warily peeked at George from behind Derek's shoulder. Derek notably didn't say a single word, nor did he appear surprised about intrusion at all. The only movement he made was a light pat on the mess of hair on Nicholas's head like usual. What wasn't usual was the distant look on his face. He accepted the reality at hand, but did not welcome it. Mr. and Miss Juarez crowded into the room next.
Excuse us.
Sorry, Derek, he slipped away in a flash.
Yeah.
Derek has to be tired.
No more.
Like, he needs some space. Obviously, the parents understand that, and so does George. But the troublemaker at hand does not. Come on, Nicholas, let Derek and Michuka have some peace. The youngest Juarez stubbornly clung onto Derek's arm. His cheeks puffed out angrily. Nicholas, go hang out with Mom and Dad. Don't you want to see them too? They missed you today. Don't you want to see Mom and Dad too? Come on, Derek. Derek and I are trying to have some alone time. I can't have that. If you're here, Nicholas. Nicholas loosened his grip as he shifted to get a better look at his big brother. Derek sighed spiritlessly. I do, but I have a friend over right now. I'll spend time with Mom and Dad and you later. Derek chose me. Nicholas bent forward and grasped Derek's pant leg. He brought out the big guns and stared at him with his most pitiful eyes and a matching pout. You know, Derek does what he's supposed to. You can be like that now too. You can be like that now, Nicholas? Don't be sad it's been a happy day. Well, none surprises happened. You sank down feeling awkward about the situation, rub your eyes in frustration. You know, Derek does what he's supposed to. You can be like that now, Nicholas. I don't understand what this option is, but it seems like I'm lecturing him, so why not? All focus shifted over to you in surprise, but the one you were focused on was the youngest Juarez. Silently he met your stare, and you could tell that he was mulling over your words. I knew you can do it too. For a second, he had a glimmer of hope that you could fix things for Derek, but as the moment passed, Nicholas still didn't budge from his spot. His grasp only tightened.
End of discussion.
Nicholas, we're reading a story right now. Nicholas angrily shook his head as she advanced across the room. She unapologetically peeled her smallest child off of Derek. The young boy let out a high-pitched whine for the entire extraction. George frowned sympathetically over the confrontation while Derek winced at the noise. When the deed was done, the middle son followed his mom out of the room. You could still hear Nicholas's piercing cry as he was carried away. I'm very sorry about the interruption. Continue as you were. None of us were ever here. He gave the both of you an encouraging smile before carefully shutting the door again. It was finally silent. Derek kept an eye out until he honestly believed that there wouldn't immediately be another sibling disaster. When he deemed it safe, he let out a quick sigh in an attempt to choke back a harsher groan. Derek flopped against the mattress with another huff and stretched his arms out at his sides. His arm twitched and his fingers curled into fists. There's never any privacy here. How am I still having to deal with things even after spending most of the day with them? You held your tongue, waiting patiently for him to get it all out. Derek muttered grievances under his breath with a harsh glare aimed at the ceiling for a good minute and screwed his mouth shut. Sorry, Derek. I think you've done a really good job with everything. It's definitely rough, and I thought Elizabeth could be difficult to deal with. At least your brothers don't think they're the boss of Elizabeth. You didn't know what to say. It's definitely rough. The bulk of his anger punched out of him with another sigh. Derek rolled his head in your direction and cracked a weak smile. He tried to match it, wishing there was something more that you could do to help. A tiny laugh shook him. It really is. Evening his breath, Derek folded his arms across his chest and squeezed his eyelids shut. You could tell by the tension in his face that he was still bothered. He was thinking hard, searching for something.
Man,
I can make this work. His low mumble was followed by a pause that had him intrigued. And then he jumped forward so that he was sitting upright again. The grin you were so used to seeing was back in full force. Michiko, wanna go back to the pool? Nobody's gonna be there this late, and my bros are not gonna be able to leave the house. We don't have to get in or even change clothes. I think it'd just be kind of a nice place to talk and that sort of thing. This episode long as fuck. Avoiding your gaze, Derek nervously rubbed the back of his head. You could tell that he was trying his hardest to be nonchalant, but he wasn't exactly succeeding. I like the way you think. Alright. Derek leapt up to his feet and turned, holding a hand out for you to take. I could hold his hand. You got up on your own, chuckling, and gripped his hand tightly. We're gonna hold his hand. What the fuck? Derek squeezed you back and helped you pull you up to your feet. Let's go. Are we still holding hands, or did he was just only doing that to help me up? The door slowly creaked open as Derek peeked out, double checking that the coast actually was clear. He gave you a thumbs up. I don't see Nicholas. I think we're good. We returned his thumbs up silently, hoping that this wasn't the calm before the storm. Derek led you into the living room, not kitchen, where you found his dad and George sitting together on a couch. Hello, Mom. Mom has Nicholas in his room, enraptured in another exciting session of story time. Good. Michiko and I were gonna go to the pool area to hang out. Is that okay?
Of course.
He chuckled, knowing exactly what Derek was trying to accomplish. George was perfectly happy where he was with his dad, so he waved goodbye to you both. Don't keep Michiko out too late. I won't. Thanks, Dad. Derek whispered with complete confidence. You gave your appreciation in an equally hushed tone. Thank you, Mr. Suarez. Suarez. The last thing either of you wanted was to alert the youngest Suarez that anything fun was happening without his knowledge, so you both silently slipped out of the apartment. Once you were free from the condo's walls, Derek's excitement was palpable. You picked up the pace and raced to the pool gate. For the third time in a single day, you and Derek stepped foot on the condo complex's private pool deck, but you soon realized you hadn't seen everything it had offered yet. Under the cover of night, the pool was completely aglow with lights set at the bottom. The bright blue struck you as inviting breaths of steam drifted off the top of the water, whispering how warm it was. The enclosed in the space was clear of any other people, and it had been like that for a while considering the stillness of the pool. Not a single ripple disrupted it in its aquarium surface. Here you'd have peace and privacy. Derek was drawn to the water like a moth to a flame. He wordlessly rolled up his jeans and tugged off his sneakers and socks, then dunked his feet right into the pool up to the middle of his calf. He stretched and wiggled his bare toes in the comfortable embrace of the heated pool on a summer night. He joined Derek at the edge. Sure, why not? Dip your feet in as well. You removed your own shoes and let your feet soak in the pool. It was as pleasant as its sparkling appearance promised. The water had none of the slight chill that the air did. It was the perfect amount of heat. Derek wrapped both his hands around the smooth tile edge and tilted back. One of his legs kicked up as his back drifted down like his upper and lower body were each one side of a seesaw. He grinned playfully at you.
But
So, what were we talking about? Well, you were saying, I don't even know what we're talking about, to be honest. that you liked having my help, but it wasn't my job to watch your brothers, and I didn't have to do it again. Oh, yeah. He solemnly brought his torso back up until he was hunched over the water. He stared down at it. All his lightheartedness had disappeared in an instant. Things were already kind of a bummer before I got interrupted. That sucks. There wasn't any heart in it, but Derek managed to chuckle. Sorry for making my problems your problems. He dug his fingers into the side of his hair, scratching at it in frustration.
it doesn't matter.
I don't even know what my problem is. They came in the room for 5 seconds. I'm dramatic. Derek, that's not dramatic, and it wasn't the only thing that happened today. Nicholas is dramatic. You're mild, he joked. You deal with a lot of problems that annoyed me, and I don't even live here. He leaned closer to show you were here to listen. Now let's just listen. Your gaze focused firmly on Derek. Derek shifted his body partly away from your attention, but he didn't ignore it. Derek crossed his arms tight and pushed him against the top of his legs. The blue water rippled around him as his legs moved against the pool wall. He pressed his heels into it. The pressure that had been only on the inside was coming out. It's just, the thing is, Nicholas and George need me all the time, and my parents need me because they need me. I don't want to let them down, I really don't, but it's hard. Every day it's like I'm gonna mess up and disappoint somebody. He bit his tongue and released his limbs from the locked positions they'd been stuck in. He couldn't scrub the furrow away from his brows.
Forget it.
Everyone has stuff to worry about, it's not just me. Mom has to take care of them way more than I do, and Dad works a job pretty much the entire day. I admire you.
I don't know.
He went silent, unmoved. Nicholas was the one who caused trouble, but somehow Derek had made himself the bad guy. It was upsetting, but Derek wasn't anywhere close to really being grown up. Of course, he couldn't be perfect, even though he acted like he thought he should be. Derek, remember when your dad first came to the pool and you? George and Nicholas were also excited. You were just like your brothers. Even if you're in charge sometimes, you're still your parents' kid. You don't have to act like an adult, especially not with me. Finally, slowly and carefully, Derek dared to glance at you again. Thanks, Michiko, for saying all that. His shoulders squished inward to frame his lowered head. He looked so much like a hopeful puppy that he could give Nicholas a run for his money in the adorable face department.
Was it annoying?
It really doesn't bother you that I complain, and sometimes hanging out with me means hanging out with 2 other kids. For all the confidence Derek displayed when push came to shove, he was pretty insecure about himself and what you thought of him. Not at all. Complain away. As long as you don't mind dealing with Elizabeth when you visit me. That's right. Derek, I love hanging out with you no matter what. That one's cute. Derek showed his full face to you. It was all lit up by the light shining through the water. The smile on his face was just as glittering.
Well,
I don't ever mind. I don't ever want to be a pain, but it's really cool to have a friend who doesn't mind listening to me and being there. Friend! That's fine. It's fine. He doesn't know my feelings. He doesn't know my feelings yet. He didn't say that lightly. He only wanted to let himself be there for you and everyone else. Being somebody Derek could count on was special. His cheeks flushed just admitting it, but with the way your heart fluttered, you were sure your face was a match. Ah, my heart fluttered. Then his eyebrow furrowed mischievously, and just like that, he catapulted right off the tile on the edge of the pool. He gasped as if you were the one who suddenly got plunged under water. Derek burst through the surface with a loud gasping laugh. The water is great! Derek, this is the 3rd time we're in chlorined water. You're way too impulsive sometimes. Are you okay? You broke out in laughter. You shook your head at Derek's spontaneous swim. Are you gonna get in trouble? I think I would laugh.
this is gonna be great.
Everything's gonna be good, chick. I'm not an adult. That was true. You push yourself right up. Fuck no! Splash Derek from the ground. Before he could blink, you sprayed his already dripping face with another heaping serving of pool water. Game on. No, please. I'm in my dry clothes, please. He sent away over the edge of the pool and he scrambled away. He chuckled triumphantly. You might have the high ground, but I've got the resources. Laughter and sloshing water brought the once stagnant pool to life. You and Derek still had a place to yourself and made the absolute most of it. But eventually Derek crawled up the stairs out of the pool. His baggy clothes poured out mini waterfalls with every step he took on land. Derek looked especially tiny with his drenched jersey draped over his frame. This reminded me of story time. When it's gonna be short story time. When I went to Vietnam when I was like maybe 11 or 12, and we were at this resort area, and I think it was our last like night there. And I was fully in my clothes and I wanted to have like one last memory, so I asked my mom if it was okay to jump into the pool and she was down for it. I think that's like one of my most favorite memories of the time with my mom, because she's not one to be so spontaneous, but I guess at that moment in her head she's like, let my kid be a kid instead of being like, no, don't do that. She jumped in with me, and I still remember that to this day. Really enjoyed that. Sometimes you just gotta let your kid be a kid. You got to your feet and walked over to Derek. Not wanting him to have to make the trip alone in that state, he gave you a thumbs up. Then he carefully tipped his head to the side and tapped his hands against his ear to get the water out.
Well,
time to face the music. Having to go home dampened Derek's mood far more than the water on his body. He could do anything here in the wide open pool with you as his only companion. Going back to his family came with countless expectations and responsibilities, but it still had to be done. Yeah. You gave a small nod, readying yourself for whatever might happen when you arrive at the Suarez's condo. With another word, you collected your shoes and you left the little oasis behind. Oh, hold hands! His slippery... so cute! His slippery fingers gripped you as tightly as they could. When you made it to the front door, Derek used the key from his pocket to open it. He had forgotten to bring it, despite leaving under rushed and uneasy circumstances. Derek stood there in front of the unlocked door, just staring at it. Practical preparation was his forte. Making himself ready for bumps in relationships was not. You didn't do anything wrong, Derek. You've got nothing to feel bad about. They do, remember that. Yeah. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, but okay. He took in a huge breath through his nose and turned the knob. The living room was quiet when you went inside. George and Mr. Suarez had moved over to the kitchen and were busy putting together a puzzle. Mr. Suarez's shoulder blocked your view, so you couldn't see what the picture was supposed to be. Miss Suarez and Nicholas were nowhere in sight. You guessed they were still in the younger boy's bedroom. It was strange not to have someone cheer and shout when Derek walked through the door. There was a feeling of absence. We're back. Oh, he actually looks drenched here. He announced himself with an absolute lack of enthusiasm. He might as well have been calling off bingo numbers to an empty room. Mr. Suarez lifted his head and turned his face to both of you. At the same time, he eagerly pushed his chair away from the counter.
I see.
Thank you for coming home. The greeting he gave was so normal that it was weird, considering how Derek brought a bucketful of water absorbed into his clothes. George offered a typical family greeting of his own, not taking his eyes off the puzzle. He was either focused or avoiding the awkwardness.
Welcome back.
Derek silently poked at a bare big toe onto the prickly... What the fuck? What the fuck is this sentence? Onto the prickly entryway door mat. The mess Derek's foot was making was too much for the little mat to contain. Water leaked out from the edges. Derek's attempt to face his family was going equally smoothly. The bright pleasantries on Mr. Suarez's face softened into warmth. He followed through on the motion. He started and got out of his chair. He crossed the living room to stand with the two of you at the front door. My hardworking son is always in demand. Our family needs to learn how to share, especially Nicholas. The last part was said with a little chuckle. Derek didn't smile from the compliment, but he did start to blush.
Excuse me.
A new voice came from the hall. Miss Suarez stood there with her hands on her hips. Peeking out from behind the skirt of her dress was a distinct specky nest of brown hair. Now that you're here, someone has something he wants to say to his big brother. Her words got George to actually turn away from the puzzle and watch the scene, but Nicholas remained hidden. Her encouragement wasn't enough. As always, he was waiting for Derek. He didn't need to tell Derek that, though. He knew it far better than you. He shifted his weight on his feet and gave Nicholas an invitation.
Okay.
What did you want to say? Nicholas darted out from behind his mom with enough speed to flutter her dress. His tiny feet thundered over the floor until he came to an abrupt stop right in front of his favorite person. He had to lean his head all the way back to look into Derek's eyes. Derek looked down to meet the gaze. Nicholas resisted the urge to hug him and instead clutched at the collar of his own shirt.
I'm sorry.
That's your room. From how much Nicholas struggled to explain his apology, it was obvious he wasn't at a point where he understood why being together at all times was a completely fantastic idea. All that had gotten through was that he'd upset his brother and that had in turn upset him. Nicholas bit his lip and moved his hands to pull at the bottom of his shirt instead of the top. The best he could come up with next was simply repeating himself.
Sorry.
Derek's lips quirked just a bit as he patiently listened to his little brother. You should say sorry to her too. Michiko helped you a lot today. Nicholas instantly twisted his head towards you and echoed the word. He was very serious. Sorry, Michiko. I appreciate that you apologized. Nicholas hopped up on the pads of his feet as a nervous but hopeful energy came over him. Your reaction was the first positive sign he'd gotten. The smallest Suarez glanced between you and Derek unsurely. He let his shirt go and balled his hand into fists. I'm sorry, Derek. I'm sorry, Michiko. Nicholas put everything he had into willing and whatever problem he caused to be fixed, and into people not feeling bad anymore. The emotional display of regret moved someone in the room to speak.
I'm sorry.
Derek snorted a laugh at the unexpectedness of the interjection. What did you even do? I don't know. George, you did nothing. You were perfect. The middle child looked down at the puzzle in front of him again, but he was staring through the pieces as if they weren't there. He remembered just barely loud enough to hear from where you were standing. You and Michiko had to watch me today, too. Aww. Derek's hesitancy completely crumbled, and his usual familial dynamic came back in full force.
Aww.
George, you don't have to apologize for that. I like to have some time by myself or with my friends, but I never want to stop having my little bros. Nicholas's massive wide eyes sparkled. For the first time since they were reunited, he carefully reached out to Derek and gripped his soaking wet jeans. Derek reached down to gently pat his baby brother's head, as he did probably every day. Neither boy cared that this time the hand was damp. Instead, they both smiled at the other with unwavering affection. No matter what visions happened, it was inevitable that it would end that way, because they both loved their family equally and deeply. Excuse me. Is this episode almost over? Because your girl has been recording for almost like an hour and 10 minutes, and I haven't had a drink. Another person took a turn to cut in as Mr. Suarez spoke up with vigor.
Let's race.
Derek and Chico, let's race. What? Derek chuckled at your confusion and switched his head pat into a full-on hair ruffle. Nicholas giggled excitedly along with his brother. Dad is asking us to play a video game, an old kart racer he likes. Yes, and I will win it. Shouldn't Derek get, dried up? Derek said, cheerfully tacked that on. It couldn't be forgotten clearly. George could be player 4. Mrs. Suarez was the only one who truly kept her distance during the reconciliation. Did I say Mr. or Miss? whatever's miss. Reconciliation between Derek and Nicholas, but now she joined the rest of the family. When she was close enough to you and Derek to whisper, she pressed a hand to the corner of her mouth and winked conspiratorially. I'll give Nico an unplugged controller. I never did that to my brother, but I know a lot of people have done that to their siblings or like cousins because, you know, they're so little, they don't know anyway. Derek grinned at that point and shifted into giving the longest strands of Nicholas's hair a friendly tug, but he didn't accept the invite immediately. He included you in the discussion. What do you think, Michiko? Are you kidding? I think we should race. He nodded at you and turned to answer his father. Alright, let's race. Derek's mom encouraged you and Derek with her words and Nicholas with her hands, taking him by the shoulders. This time she wouldn't be letting him get away from her.
Go on.
Go get changed. We'll plug it in so it's ready by the time you're back. Thanks, Mom. Derek's mood changed to be buoyed by the support of his parents, and he left to go get changed while walking as lightly as he could in his wet clothes. You didn't know where anything was, so you had to leave the prep work to Mr. Suarez and George. The two of them got right into it, opening drawers and pulling out cords. You found something to do by keeping Nicholas company with Mr. Suarez. He was on his best behavior and didn't whine for Derek even once. And as promised, Mr. Suarez's dark purple GameCube was fully connected with 4 controllers, plugged in by the time Derek strode into the living room. Oh, his jammies! He looks so cute too! Matching! A familiar shout filled the whole room. All was right in the world. Derek's back! Yep, Nico, I'm here. Miss Suarez was on the carpet with Nicholas in her lap. She'd already passed him a controller and he was having a blast pressing the clicky buttons, despite the fact they did nothing except make a little noise. George and Mrs. Suarez took seats on the couch. George tucked himself as closely against his father so the two were only taking up one side. The other half of the couch was reserved for you and Derek. Derek dove into the spot next to George. He got settled in nicely against the plush back of the couch and folded his legs up across this cushion. You got in the final place and relaxed against the armrest. Hell yeah. I haven't played with one of these in a while. George passed one controller to Derek, which Derek gave to you. Then he handed over a second, which Derek kept. Mr. Suarez filled you in on the decision he and his second son had made.
What do you think?
Junior on a team. You and Michiko can play together. What do you think? Derek tilted his head your way. He lifted his shoulders and added on to his dad's briefing. It's a double racer. One drives, the other controls items. What game is this? Doesn't sound like Mario Kart unless they have that in Mario Kart. I love that game. Me too. It's me and you then. Oh, it's me and you. The deal was sealed. The packs had been made. George perked up and shook Mr. Suarez's arm. Hey Dad, we're Team Suarez. Yes, we are. Derek's fingers were on the buttons and he was leaning over his crossed legs in anticipation for the game to begin. He replied unbothered. Cool for you guys. With his gaze still glued to the TV, a cheeky grin pulled at his lips. Derek spoke one more thing under his breath that was meant just for him, but you were sitting close enough to still catch it. What is our name then? Oh my god, this boy is so fucking adorable. I don't mind being Team Melody. You're so sweet. We're going to lose. He giggled sweetly, being squished into a couch so close to him felt even warmer. All 4 players making up the 2 teams chose their characters, carts, positions, and the track set. To start, Derek and Mr. Suarez were driving. You and George had an item launching duty. 3, 2, 1! The carts launched. I'm still not over the fact. Oh my god. He's so cute. The cars launched across the starting lines with both drivers getting an extra boost. Team Melody and Team Suarez were off down the colorful jungle road. There would be 3 laps before the race was over. Lap 1 was a frantic race for the top spot. The carts were neck and neck to each other over every hill and around each curve, neither getting ahead or falling behind. Attacks were constantly exchanged and buttons were pressed at rapid speeds. That included Nicholas as he watched the race and tried to use his controller the way everyone else was. You wondered which part of the game he thought he was impacting. By lap 2, Team Melody had taken a strong lead. Almost nothing from the Suarez camp could reach your cart. Once he passed the line to start lap 3, Derek was cocky enough to bring out the small talk. I thought you were gonna win, Dad. The Suarez's expression was perfectly content. More than that, it was serene. And it was with that calm face Derek's father carefully reached across George and then in the blink of an eye locked his large hand around the comparatively tiny controller Derek held. Hey! The car you and Derek shared went out of control, careening off the dirt path into a pit. You had to wait for the game to fish you out and place you back on the... This is Mario Kart! Team Suarez rode on right pass. See him winning now. Is this an actual game mode in GameCube? I mean, when I play regular Mario Kart, I'm my own kart, so I wouldn't know. Derek's dad was fully unapologetic. He grinned like a child who just found out you could get a hole-in-one at put golf and you just dropped the ball in the hole. You're cheating now! Derek sputtered with laughter made of equal parts amusement and disbelief. He yanked his arms towards his chest to fight for freedom, but Mr. Suarez's grip was unmovable. You're running interference, huh? From a distance, Miss Suarez mused over the situation that had begun to unfold. Her husband stole a look at where she'd been sitting. She was gone, leaving only Nicholas on the floor. Mr. Suarez lifted one thick eyebrow and pressed the other lower. He could only puzzle over what it might mean, until it all became clear by the world going dark only for him. Derek's mom had crawled under behind the couch, popped up from behind, and slipped her fingers under Mrs. Suarez's glasses. He was caught completely off guard. His father started from shock of a surprise attack that wasn't committed by himself. Yeah, Mom! Derek hadn't got his controller back. Mr. Suarez stubborn in his hold, but his dad was just as incapacitated as a driver. Yeah, Mom! An echo of Derek's cheer came from behind. All the excitement in the air had stirred a fire in Nicholas. He wasn't just playing with an off controller anymore. He crawled on all fours at a rapid pace until he reached a couch and launched himself right at his dad's stomach. It was powerful enough that Mr. Suarez sprung forward, and Miss Suarez's hands were yanked off him. Oof! But Derek's controller was finally free, and Mr. Suarez had to let go of both controllers to catch a squirming child. Nicholas would not be contained. He climbed up over his dad's shoulder and wrapped his arms around Mr. Suarez's face. As sweet justice, the Team Suarez cart flew off a bridge into the abyss below. Yeah, Nicholas! George placed his own controller in his lap with a shake of his head and a smirk. Team Suarez wasn't winning this race. Derek rolled his shoulders and poked a tongue out of the corner of his mouth in concentration. He was back in business. The Team Melody cart course corrected and raced towards the finish line of the final lap. The youngest Suarez hugged all four of his limbs around his dad even tighter, from the thrill of seeing Derek speed his car around the track. Yeah! Items weren't needed now, but you were just as invested in watching your cart making the last stretch, and Derek brought it home, crossing the finish line. We won! Derek threw his fist into the air, pumped them back down to his chest, and turned to you with the palm held out for you to smack. Man, you guys should know. If you know me by now, I am always going for the hug option. If a hug is there, we're going for the hug. If a kiss is there, we're going for the kiss over the hug. You ignored the hand and flung your arms around his neck. He squeezed you back, pressing his face into your shoulder. You were victorious. We won! Nicholas sent his arms up towards the sky, a perfect imitation of his eldest brother. Mr. Suarez used the opportunity to collect his son from off his shoulder and placed Nicholas into his lap. He pet his son's hair and he laughed, breathless but full of joy.
Okay.
I lost. Next race. This time Derek repeated the phrase, still raring to go. But that was naturally followed by the original copycat. Nicholas clapped gleefully and snuggled up against his seat on his father's chest. Next race. George picked up his abandoned controller once more. His voice was quieter but no less sincere.
Yeah.
Next race. Alright, we can let them win now. And all the commotion you completely forgotten, you could have switched to the driver role to take over for Derek at any time. George could have too for his dad, but you were glad it went the way it did. Team Melody got its win with the assistance of Team Pile drivers, Nicholas and Miss Suarez. And the game was just getting started. Let's just nod.
Well.
Now this is a real party. There's still pizza in the fridge. Who wants leftovers? My parents are like not coming to pick me up at this point. We might as well have a sleepover. The suggestion of food riled Nicholas up even more. He clambered over his dad's shoulder for the second time, tugging on his beard and accidentally knocking his glasses off. Mr. Suarez wheezed out a chuckle. Nicholas stared out from over the couch into the kitchen. He wanted that pizza, but couldn't be the first to ask. Pizza, please.
Same.
George and Mr. Suarez chimed in their own requests. Can I have some, Mom? I would like some pizza, my beloved wife who never turns against me. She snickered with a glint in her eyes. Of course, start the game, I'll heat it up. All four of the Suarez men spoke in unison. Thanks, Mom. Thank you
You're
too.
welcome.
Players all resumed their positions and took up their tools, slightly sweated GameCube controllers. When the second race started, the grin on Derek's face was one of the most radiant you'd seen the whole day. His dad, mom, and brothers too really knew how to make Derek happy. That brought a smile to your face. From getting a window into Derek's life and from what you knew from your own, spending every day with the same people could take a lot of patience, but there were a lot of perks too. Your time at the Suarez household ended with family, food, and fun. The triple Fs. There wasn't much more you could have asked for. Aw, that was actually cute. That was long as hell. Like an hour and 20. It's gonna be like an hour 25, the point of me talking and ending the episode. But, alright. So we now know, well, we've been new since last episode, that Derek has two other siblings, George and Nico. Nico being the youngest, the most troublemaker, George being the middle child, which seems to be often forgotten, and he can handle his own. Next episode will be the lemonade, but I don't think I'm going to record it today because my throat is shot. So I will be looking very different in the next episode for lemonade. After lemonade, we're going to do siblings, boardwalk, and then end off with a soiree because that's what they wanted us to do. And then in step 3, we had to say we want to keep in contact with Derek. So then in step 4 is the epilogue of Derek, aka it's completely Derek, I'm pretty sure. I don't think he has a marriage option. And if they do have a marriage option for Derek, it might be later in the future from my guess. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Stay beautiful, and I will see you guys in the next one.